G'day everyone, welcome to the How to Halo Reach ODST web series. This is of course tutorial part 6. And of course in today's tutorial we're going to be focusing on the Gauntlet, which is actually quite a difficult piece to build. But of course by no means is it impossible, so it will just take a bit to really focus and actually mount it to your arm quite nicely. So to rate the difficulty of this piece, I'm going to give it an 8 out of 10. This is actually the most difficult piece on the costume build, only because everyone's arm is really different. For me, I've got very thin forearms. Some people have quite muscular ones, some have even thinner than mine. So to get it fitting right is going to take a bit of adjustments on you, but that is shown in the tutorial. So 8 out of 10. Plus there's a lot of different layers on this that really are combined to bring it into the total design, but nothing you guys can't handle given time and patience. But enough talk, let's jump straight in. Alright, so kicking it off, go ahead and print out the 3 templates needed for this tutorial. Once you've done that, you can go ahead and start cutting it out of the actual A4 piece of paper and then tape it together so it's one solid piece. Nothing different, that's pretty much what you've been doing the whole time. Then we can go ahead and transfer it onto the foam itself, and what we're going to do is we're going to start cutting up the template so we can get all the fold lines needed to really bring this flat foam slab around to a nice kind of circular piece to go around your forearm. Now we're not wanting it to be a circular piece because that would look a bit strange. It does have these nice forms to it which I've designed in specifically. So what we're going to do to allow us to get those nice forms is actually create these fold lines. Now to get those fold lines we're just cutting apart the templates on the guided lines themselves and then transferring them onto the foam piece. So we should at this point have 3. Pretty much what you can see on screen. So nothing too difficult. Then what you can do is something you've been used to by now, I'm sure, is beveling on an interior to give us these nice folded curves. You can do the beveling on both sides so it allows the foam to really fold in a bit more of an advanced curve, so that way we get a really nice fold line on the exterior side once we've heated it up and glued it into position. And that's pretty much what we're doing now, is just making sure there's enough glue in there and just folding it very carefully, because we don't want it to bend. We actually want it to give it that nice flat edge when folding. Once it's set, you can slowly go ahead and do all of them until they're all nice and good looking, which actually that does look pretty damn sweet. Now to get these harder edges, I guess you could say, over, you're going to heat up just that end bits. You don't want to heat up where we've just folded, because that will completely destroy the nice seams that we've got. And once you've heated it over, bend it into position and it should give us this nice kind of arched curve, and then you can glue it into position down that seam line. Now just for assurances, yes, it might look a bit strange, but this is actually what it will look in its base shape and then finally come out as the graded design in the end. So now what we're going to do is grab these templates and start cutting them all out, because we're going to start transferring over a bit more of a layered effect. So once we've done this section here, you can go ahead and transfer them onto the foam, just the lines itself at this point, because what we're going to do is then use a nice sharp craft blade and cut out this segment, because obviously it's got a horrible seam on it at the moment. We don't want to use this piece. If you want to, because you want to save foam, you can use it, I guess, but we're all about trying to keep things as neat as possible and clean. So what you're going to do is grab the template that we initially used, and we're going to draw out this perimeter line, maybe, I don't know, either a few millimeters in, depends how thick your arm is, or maybe just under ½ an inch. Trim that off and then create a new template with that new smaller scaled version. The reason we're making it a smaller scaled version is because we want it to go on a different layer. So once we've heated it up and bent it around, you'll see what I mean about the different layer, we can go ahead and glue it into position. It should just slot straight in, because all it is doing is using the initial template we initially had in that segment and replacing it with a smaller one. Now if you find there's too much gap between your wrist and the armor, we can actually bring it forward or make it smaller. This is only if you need to make it smaller. You can draw in simple lines leading inwards, pretty much what I'm doing here, and then you can cut those segments out and then glue the armor pretty much back into position, and it should make a smaller opening for you, just to make it look a bit cleaner and nicer. Moving on, we can start working on pretty much doing what we just did, but for the top section. Now there's 2 different ways you can do it. If it fits already and you can get your top of your forearm in, then that's awesome. Just cut out and do the exact same process we just did for the bottom one. But if it is a bit too large for you, too small for you and you do need to make it larger, what we can do is we can extend it. So pretty much the bottom one you can see here on screen is the exact left alone how it is, and the top one is one that I've extended the top sections out, given it maybe 1/2 inch on both sides. This will allow for the extra thickness in your forearm. If you find still after you've extended these edges that it doesn't fit, then take it out another inch and heat it up and it should hopefully fit. So once you've decided whether you want it the same size or you want it larger, we can pretty much go through the exact same process that we did for the smaller end, I guess. You can just heat it up, bend it into shape, and then just hot glue it back into position, but on that more interior level, just to give it a bit more of a 3D design. Now what we can start doing is transferring all these lines across, which will create some aspect of detail. You can enhance this or add more if you wish, but for now we'll just keep it simple. Cut out the template and transfer those lines on. You can either do that freehand or just tracing from the actual template itself. Now we can start working on this top section. Now the top section has a few pieces to it, so we'll start with one. We'll start at the top and transfer this grating kind of design. I have no idea what you'd call it, but we'll call it a grating looking design for now. You can transfer that on freehand if you wish, and then start scoring those lines. You can actually go ahead and score all the other lines we did a few moments ago, and then we can grab a heat gun and we'll open up those seams to really give a nicer, thicker look, which I'm sure you've done on the previous pieces in this tutorial so far. Now we can start working on the tricky part. Now this has a few layers to it, so you're gonna have to take it careful and make sure you don't get pieces mixed up. So first we'll do is we'll cut out the section out of the template itself, and then we'll transfer it onto the foam. Now what we can do is we can cut this piece in half simply by running the blade through the middle of it, and take your time because you don't want to cut yourself, and make sure your fingers are always away from wherever the blade is, because I don't want you guys harming yourselves in these tutorials. It's really not ideal. So go ahead and take your time and cut those pieces out. Then what we're going to do is we're going to cut the template in half, I guess what you call, cut out this interior section and then transfer this line onto that piece of foam. Don't get lost just yet, we've still got a bit more to go. And then what you can do is just transfer that semicircle onto the top section as well, and we'll leave that for now. Then what you can do, it even gets harder, we're going to grab that interior section, the interior section template, and transfer that onto a brand new piece of foam, so that way it's a full thickness piece of foam. Then what we're going to do is transfer these lines onto the actual piece, which you can see here. It creates a nice little actually I wouldn't know what to call it. It just creates this nice look. As long as you pretty much mimic what's on screen, it shouldn't be a problem. Then you're going to grab a very nice sharp blade, and you're going to need a sharp one, and you're going to cut across these angles, giving it a beveled edge and some nice of a better looking design than a flat, solid, square, rectangular looking shape. So it should come out like that. Don't worry about heating it up just yet. We're going to do that at the end to give it a more solid and well-rounded look. Then what we can do is we're going to start actually transferring the interior lines, which you can pretty much mimic what's on screen because it's getting hard to describe what's actually happening. And then what we're going to do is cut out the interior section, the interior section, and cut that in half. So pretty much you're doing exactly what we just did before, making sure your fingers are out of the way and slowly running the blade through until it comes out in two separate pieces. Now what we're going to do is we're going to grab that interior template and slowly cut it away at it so we can transfer these kind of like semicircle looking lines across and build it up until you've got it all looking like so. Then you can start scoring it. Now scoring is the easiest part, of course. Remember, you're just running the blade through the surface of the material, so that way we're not actually cutting all the way through the foam, because it would be a bit awkward and hard to go forward if you actually cut all the way through. So make sure you just score the tip, and you can also score the tip of the semicircle piece that we've got here. Now all those three pieces should be looking like this, and we can start gluing them all together. Just carefully put some hot glue on and push them into position. They should slot in pretty well as long as you cut them neatly. If it doesn't, just trim it if necessary and make sure it all fits in like so. Then once it's all sitting in, we can grab a heat gun and we can just give it a light heat over just to make sure everything kind of comes together and it dentures and it brings out all those scored lines, and all the beveled edges we did cut become a bit more softer and better looking. Okay, so we're nearly at the end. What we do need to do now is add in this tiny piece of detail. This is, I wouldn't actually have a clue on what this is. Science fiction designy looking pieces that get put on for some particular reason. That's what it is. What you can do is you can simply cut out the template and transfer it onto the foam. Now this is facing outward, so if you're wearing on your arm, this design should be pointing towards whatever may be outside your body, not facing in towards your chest or torso region. Then once it's all on, you can simply score it and then heat it up to make the lines really stand out. And to finish this, I know finish, keyword, it's coming up, as if it hasn't been hard enough already. What we can do is we can create this elbow piece that just slots onto the end of the gauntlet. You can transfer the templates onto the foam. Luckily we're only using 3 pieces, so it shouldn't be too difficult for you. And then we can cut the beveled edges on the inside of the centerpiece. So we're not doing the top and bottom, we're just doing the side panels, I guess you could call them. What we're going to do then is create this nice center cut line, which will allow us to bend it. So pretty much we did that on all the pieces previously, so as long as you make that, you shouldn't have a problem. Then you can give it a nice heat over and glue the center seam there, which should allow you to bend it over and create that nice angle. Now once we've got that nice angle, nice and set, I just used nice like 4 times in one sentence, you can glue the wings into position. They should just slot in without any issue. Now if you do find that it's got a bit of overhang, that's really no issue. You can just simply draw a line that meets where the overhang should end, and you can just trim that off to make it flush. Once you've made it flush, we can then just put it into position where it should go, mark it out so that way you know exactly where you're gluing it back into, and then just put some hot glue and just slot it into place, and make sure you hold it there for maybe 2 minutes or so, so that way it doesn't fight back. And pretty much that wraps up that piece. Now remember, this is just the left arm, so to do the right you will just need to flip over the template. It's really not that hard, or build it at the same time and do one and then the other simultaneously by just flipping over the template itself. So that's it. Hopefully you guys managed to follow along and it wasn't too difficult for you. The process may seem a bit daunting at first, but if you follow along like every other tutorial you have so far and focused on each individual stage, you shouldn't have too much of an issue. The only issue you may run into, well, some might not, it just depends how muscular your forearms are, is being able to fit into it and slowly adjusting the size as need be. If it comes to a worst case scenario and no matter how much you adjust it, it just won't fit your arm, then what you can do is like what I've done on my own costume to fit my mannequin, which is actually a bit thicker than me, is you cut a seam down the middle. Now, it doesn't have to be this extreme, but once you've actually got it on, it should be able to flip on and flip off pretty easy, and you won't ever actually see the seam in any photo or pretty much any walk around costume because it's on the back. And you can actually bring that together with an elastic if you wanted, but that isn't a worst case scenario if it doesn't actually fit your arm. Otherwise, that's about it. Thank you very much for watching. Of course, I'll join you in part 7 when we go ahead and tackle the thighs, which are, compared to this, an extremely easy build. So, good luck on the gauntlet build, and I'll catch you later.